Hi, I'm Debbie, and this is Book and Bujo, where I talk about all things books, bullet journals, and stationery. Today is my April Readathon book picks. And I do chapter all my videos in case you want to skip around to the different readathons that I'm doing and the books they're in. You can just skip ahead or behind, go back and forth if you like. I have a couple readathons that I participate in April. One of them is Buzzwordathon, and I did go over that one in my TBR for April, so I will leave that one linked down below in the description box if you want to check it out, as well as up in the cards above. And for that one, the prompt is nature words, and I am reading Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling. So let's get started with Tomes and Treasures by A Creepy Geek. So Jem and her friend decided to come up with a Dungeons and Dragons themed readathon called Tomes and Treasures, and it just sounds so much fun. So this first readathon is all about getting your character prepped and ready so you know who you are, what you're all about, and getting yourself equipped. So the first prompt is you need to choose your race, and I am an elf, and not just an elf, a moon elf. That one's just on me. That's not part of the categories. You just choose an elf, but I thought a moon elf sounded pretty cool. And the prompt, I have my little cheat sheet here and it's super tiny, so excuse me as I squint to read. So the prompt is to read a book with a beautiful cover, and for that I chose Dragonfall by David Estes, which is the second book in the Kingfall History series, as well as the Book and Bujo Book Club book pick for April and May. For class, I am a druid, and the prompt is features nature or shifters. Now, too bad it wasn't from March because I'm reading a wolf shifter book, but I will have that finished before April starts, so I won't be able to count that. But I have decided to read Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling, and that is the first book in the Avon Green series, and that one is all about nature. So if you've never seen the Saguaro Forest, or the Saguaro National Park, which is basically just a big forest of saguaro cacti, it is sparsely beautiful. Not sure exactly how to put that. I think it's just beautiful, just all of the different cactus shapes out there with the different arms, some with no arms, and I don't know, they have so much character, and the birds love to burrow little holes and nests inside, and so there's just so much character in a cactus, and I can't wait to read this book and learn a little bit more about them. Background. So I am an Outlander, and the prompt for that is to read a book that fits the vibe of your background. And I chose, so there's actually two books I could choose. It depends. So I am supposed to read Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill for March, the Irish Readathon. If I do not get to it, then I will read this book for this prompt, because there's a couple characters in here that have that Outlander feeling, but also they have a small little village in the foresty area, and so it definitely fits that vibe. But if I do end up reading that in March, then I will read the second book in the series, which is Of Darkness and Light. Of course, the second book in the Bound with Broken series by Ryan Cahill. Similar thing, we got some of the same characters, some of the same vibes and the feelings. So one of those two books will be read for this prompt. Next up, you need to choose your upbringing, and mine is forest. So I was brought up in the forest, and you have to read a book set in the forest, which totally makes sense. And this is another one where I'm waiting to see till I read the book to see what happens. But I am hoping that Winter's Heart by Robert Jordan, which is the 9th book in the Wheel of Time series, will fit this prompt. Most of the other books have had a pretty chunky portion of the book set in the forest, so I'm hoping this one will as well. But if for some reason it doesn't, then I will read The Prophet of Edan by Philip Chase, and this is the second book in the Edan trilogy. Because the first book also had a lot of stuff that took place in the forest, so I'm hoping the second book will as well. This one's going to be kind of a guessing game. I'm hoping as I read books, I will be able to put one of them from my TBR my 21 book TBR into that slot. So if you haven't seen my TBR video for April, I will leave that linked up in the cards and also in the description box down below, because it was a lot of books. Moving on. Next up is deity. So what deity you worship in this world, and that is the god of nature. Very nature themed is my character. And you have to have nature on the cover. Now, Winter's Heart I know also has nature on the cover, but I chose that for a different prompt, so I couldn't use it for this prompt as well. But when I zoomed in on this cover, I was kind of looking at the cover going, it's kind of weird looking down there. Like, what is that stuff in the background? Like all these shadowy stuff around. And I zoomed in, I realized, it's trees. So Vampire Academy by Emily Clark. And it's really hard to see because it's so dark. But all of this back in here, all of that is all trees, which is pretty cool. And there's a big shadow, little reflection of a tree right in here as well. So that'll work for nature on the cover. Now, of course, they're winter trees. There's no leaves or anything on them, but they are still trees, and I am gonna take it. Next up is your alignment, your character alignment, and I am lawful and neutral. So you can be, I almost chose chaotic because I do tend to be a little chaotic, but I went with lawful, and then you could be good, bad, or neutral, and I decided to go with neutral. So I lean towards the good and the lawful, but sometimes I don't always make the right choices. So you have to have, this is the only prompt you can double up on books, and this one for lawful, you have to have blue on the cover, and for neutral, you have to have white on the cover. So blue and white on the cover, which, I mean, Mother of Learning would have been great for that, but I'm reading that this month, so that doesn't count. But I did find another book that had both blue and white on the cover, which it's hard to tell on my Kindle. Oh, Sword of Kaigen would have worked really well too, because it's in black and white, but Shade's First Rule by AFK, and this is the first book in the Divine Apostasy series, and I will put the colored cover up here so you can see it as well. And now to choose equipment. I chose medium armor, so depending on what your race and other affinities are, it depends on what kind of equipment you can choose, but I was able to choose a medium armor, and that was to continue a series, which is great because most of my books are parts of series. And I chose When the Spell Blows by Renee George, which is the third book in the Grimoires of a Middle-Aged Witch series. And again, this book series is so much fun. It's very entertaining. So you can either choose a weapon or a spell, depending on your race and your class and all of that. I could have picked a weapon and a spell, but I went with 2 spells instead because it was really hard to choose between them all because there's lots of them. But the first spell, I chose to disguise myself. Figured that would come in handy. And the prompt is a book that had a cover change, and that was actually really easy because all of the Discworld books have had multiple different covers, and I went with Monstrous Regiment, which is the 31st book in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. And then spell number 2 was Burning Hands, so I can create fire with my hands, and that'll be fun. And you need fire on the cover or featured in the book. And for that, I chose The Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie, the second book in the Age of Madness series. The last prompt is for your skills, and you have to make a list of 20 books, and then you roll a d20 die. And I already have a d20 list that I created at the beginning of the year, and I rolled a 20, of course. And that one is Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks, and that is the first book in the Dark Shores series, and I am really looking forward to reading this one. So that is my Tomes and Treasures TBR. Next up, I found out about one more readathon that is happening in April that I think is amazing, and even if I don't get to any of the books on the TBR, I would love to get the word out to other people so that they can participate in this readathon, and that is Autism Acceptance Readathon. The Autism Acceptance Readathon was created by our host MJ James, and they are joined by their co-hosts Chelsea Zhao and the Reading Wren. There are 4 prompts for this readathon, and the first one is to read a nonfiction book about autism. And I plan on reading the nonfiction graphic novel by Rebecca Ullerton, and that is Sensory: Life on the Spectrum. The second prompt is to read an intersectional autism voice. And this is an author or a main character that is autistic, as well as another type of diversity, such as person of color or LGBTQIA+, non-binary, or some other type of diversity. And for this one, I plan on reading An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. Prompt number 3 is to read a host recommendation. And in Chelsea's video, which I will link down below, Chelsea gives recommendations from all 3 hosts, so 3 books from each host, to help you figure out your own TBR. And I plan on reading The Remaking of Corbin, Wale by Roan Parrish. The 4th prompt is to read an indie own voice autistic book. And there's quite a few recommendations for this one. One of them is pretty much any book by Talia Hibbert. I would recommend Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which I read last year and absolutely loved. The main character is autistic as well as a person of color. The main character is autistic and Talia Hibbert is as well. As I've already read that book, I plan on reading The Princess Trap, also by Talia Hibbert. You could also read An Unkindness of Ghosts for this one by Rivers Solomon, and a couple other recommendations for an intersectional autism voice from prompt number 2 are The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, The Book Eaters by Sun Yi Dean, as well as The Remaking of Corbin, Wale by Roan Parrish. Hopefully I will be able to get to at least one of these books, or maybe I will be able to swap a book that I already have on my TBR for one of these instead. I think this is a great readathon to get the word out and help to demystify autism for people who may not have had any type of interaction or knowledge about what autism is and the amazing people that happen to be autistic, no matter where they are on the spectrum. And I think this is just amazing, and I can't wait to read more and find out more myself. Now, as I am completely buried in all of the books from my TBR-opoly TBR, where the dice just was out to get me for April, as well as Tomes and Treasures and the Magical Readathon, and of course now the Autism Acceptance Readathon. Hopefully I will survive the month and will have learned something new and valuable to take on into the rest of my life. So it's time for the spring equinox. I believe this is the 3rd spring equinox we've had. I think so. I think this is the 3rd one. I've participated in all of them so far, and they've been so much fun. So I do have 2 characters, and both my characters are double majors, of course, but then one of my characters has decided to just go crazy and add a 3rd major on top, because G created yet another amazing class that just sounds great, and it just fits so well with that character. So let's go ahead and start with Ariel. So Ariel would like to be a master of elements, as well as a Feywild cartographer. Now for spring, it's not too bad, because this is the list of classes that you need to take. But for autumn, you have to take these classes, and not only is it just these classes, but there's either an O, a Q, or a D. So the O, you only have to read 1 book for that prompt. A Q, you have to read 2 books to fulfill that prompt. A D, you have to fulfill 3 books for that prompt. So it can get a little crazy once you get into autumn. We'll see what happens. But we got Master of Elements and Feywild Cartography. So Ariel needs to take Alchemy, and the prompt for that is a Transmutation Circle on the cover. And for that, I will be reading The Girl and the Moon by Mark Lawrence, the third book in the Book of the Ice series. Her next class is Animal Studies. It is Pebble Ducks, and that is to read a book with a yellow title. This was actually a little easier than I thought it was going to be. And it's hard to tell on my Kindle because it's black and white. But that is Last Call by John Robinson. And again, I will put the colored photo up here so you can see that, yes, it is yellow. Next up, Astronomy. And that is Constellations 3, Zodiac Recommendations. So you need to have a book recommendation based on your zodiac. So I watched quite a few videos, and most of them I've either already read or don't have access to, like my library doesn't have them. But I was able to find one that my library does have, and I'm a Sagittarius if you didn't know. And that is All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody. And that is also the first book in the All of Us Villains series. Next up, Conjuration, Binding Prism, a color wheel generator. And for Ariel, we saw in my TBRopoly video that I got aqua, but it wasn't like a blue aqua, it was more of a green aqua. And I'm of course going to pick the same book that I picked for my TBRopoly, and that is When the Spell Blows by Renee George, and that is the third book in the Grimoires of a Middle-Aged Witch series. Next up, Elemental Studies, Call Lightning, Source of Light on the cover. And for that, I will be reading The Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie, which is the second book in the Age of Madness series, and there is fire on the cover, and that is a source of light. Inscription, Practical, Typography. Write down 3 titles, fold, and pick one. And for that, I got Shade's First Rule. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And that is the first book in the Divine Apostasy series by AFK. Restoration, Regaining Consciousness. Books you think could cure slumps. Interesting. So it took me a little bit to find one for this, but after reading the first book in the series, I know this book could definitely cure a slump for me. And that is Dragonfall, the second book in the Kingfall Histories series by David Estes. How can you not love a book with dragons in it? And last class for Ariel is Shapeshifting, and that is Mimics. Read from author who blurbed your last 5-star book. This was really difficult. So when you have just a Kindle, sometimes you can find little blurbs in there or praise for, but most of the time it's from blogs or magazines or newspapers, that type of thing. They're not from an actual author. So I had to go all the way back to August of 2023 to finally find one. And I started looking on Amazon for reviews, on Goodreads, and everywhere. I was looking all over the internet just trying to find some of these books that would have blurbs on the covers or inside the books. And I did find one. It had 3 authors, and that was The Dangerous Book for Boys by Con and Hal Eagleton. I don't know anything about this book. It sounds like if you are a boy or an older man, I think it's like from 8 to 81, it said that you would enjoy this book. So it's all things that boys would love to do. Playing stickball, going camping, so it's little short stories or something like that about all of those type of things. It's fairly short. I think it's like under 4 hours for the audiobook, so it'll be fun. We'll see what it's like. Editing Debbie here to say I forgot a class for Ariel. She also has to take Demonology, which is Pacts and Contracts, a book you didn't pay for. And so I am choosing one of my library books that is Breach of Peace, which is the first book in the Lawful Time series by Daniel B. Green, who is a fellow booktuber. All right, on to Karasu, my other character. Now, of course, both of my characters, like myself, are overachievers. So Karasu decided to go way crazy, and he's going to continue his education to be a god seer and a scribe. But they just came up with Aldea Excavationer, or Aldea Excavationist. And that one is right up Karasu's alley. He loves all things archaeology, and it's a fairly short list of classes for both the spring and the autumn equinox. So it's fairly doable. Of course, there's only 2 prompts listed here, but that's 5 books total because it's a Q and a D. But it should be okay. So we're gonna give it a try with Scribe, Godseer, and Aldia Excavationist. So let's check out his prompts. First class for Karasu is Animal Studies, Pebble Ducks, yellow in the title. So I had to find a second book with yellow in the title, but I did find one, and that is A Hatful of Sky, which is the 32nd book in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. Next up is Astronomy, Constellations 3, another Zodiac recommendation, and that is The Art of Nonconformity, so a nonfiction which fits well for Karasu, and that is by Chris Guilbeault. Conjuration, Binding Prism, a color wheel. And this one time I got a dark green. That was kind of weird that I got kind of shades of green both times. Monstrous Regiment, the 31st book in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett, fit great. Next up, Demonology, Pacts and Contracts, a book you didn't pay for. And I chose The Seventh Bride by T. Kingfisher, and this is one of my Prime Reading books that is an Amazon borrow. So I did not purchase this book. Of course, I do have to return it when I'm done. Elemental Studies, Call Lightning, a source of light on the cover. And I chose The Prophet of Edan, and you can see all like the lightning strikes all around here. And that's the 2nd book in the Edan trilogy by Philip Chase. So Spell Quick Count, Random Number Generator, title length. So you have to have this amount of letters in the title of the book. And I got 14, and I had a whole lot of books that had 17, 19, a lot of books with 17 letters in the title, which is weird, but I finally found one with 14 books in the title, and that is Vampire Academy by Emily Clark. Definitely going to get a lot of use out of this book for only 47 pages. Inscription, Practical Typography. Write down 3 titles, fold, and then pick one. And this time I got Winter's Heart, which is the 9th book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. Lore, Interrupted, reread The Legend of Dia. This is pretty cool because this is The Legend of Dia, and it comes with a little short story to read along with it. So pretty much this is all you have to read for that prompt, which is amazing because I already have so many books on my TBR. I'm glad not to have one more. Psionics and Divination, Clairenchants, 2, Prediction Bingo. Create anywhere from like 3 across to 3 down, 4 across 4 down, 5 across 5 down, however you want to do that bingo, and then these are the predictions that you're hoping for in this book, whatever book you choose. And then if you get a bingo, it's just a reward of getting a bingo. If you want to create your own reward, so you get a nice treat, so maybe you get to go out to eat or have a fun snack or buy yourself a book, something like that, then that's your reward. Is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandrana. Restoration, Regaining Consciousness, books you think could cure slumps. And for this one, I chose Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling because I think it's just going to be adorable and pretty fast-paced, like pretty fast reading. So her writing style is very accessible, very easy to read, and I think I'll be able to just fly through that book and it will bring me a lot of joy and smiles. And that was it. That's all of my books for Tomes and Treasures and the Magical Readathon, and I am really looking forward to getting into my April reads, at least for the readathons. My April TBR is a little intimidating, but with all of those books, I think it's doable. I've done over 30 books in a month before during the Magical Readathon with over 11,000 pages, so I think my TBR will be doable, but I'm still a little nervous and cautious, but hopeful and optimistic at the same time. What readathons are you participating in April? Are you part of the Magical Readathon, the Orilium Academy? Ariel is Order of the Crescent and Karasu is an archivist. So what guild are you part of? I would love to find out. Leave that in a comment down below. And are you going to participate in Tomes and Treasures? Do you like D&D style readathons? I think they're pretty fun. It's great coming up with characters and creating like a backstory for them, and it's just a lot of fun and very creative. It gets my creative juices going and gets some stuff just flowing through and moving forward, and I love it. It's also a fun escape when days can get stressful. So please like, comment, and subscribe if you want it, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other videos from me. So if you made it this far in the video, leave a cactus emoji in the comments to let me know that you are here, since I have the insignificant events of the life of a cactus pretty much in everything that I'm reading. So leave some type of cacti in the comments to let me know that you are here. And until next time, keep reading. Bye!